Our summer of rioting has been, of course, ostensibly fueled by several specific incidents in which black suspects died or were severely injured during an attempted arrest by police. BLM and its allies have selected these cases and singled them out as representative of a larger systemic problem. And we're told that the men who were killed or injured, George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, Jacob Blake, Deon Kay, Daniel Prude, Ricardo Munoz, most recent one, these were victims of police brutality, and they were targeted because of the color of their skin. But if we examine all of the cases together, now that we have this sample size, and we compare them objectively, we don't actually find any evidence of racism, nor any apparent connection to systemic problems in law enforcement. What we do find is that all of the high-profile, quote-unquote, victims over the last several months made similar choices, and that their choices, not their skin color, can be directly linked to their deaths. See, their cases provide, for those who need it, a reverse blueprint for how to avoid getting killed by police. Simply do the opposite of what Floyd, Brooks, and company did, and your chance of surviving an encounter with police is very near 100%, regardless of your race. So let's review briefly. Okay, George Floyd, violent felon, high on potentially lethal doses of fentanyl, tried to use counterfeit money, resisted arrest, died of cardiac arrest while being restrained by police. Rayshard Brooks, lengthy arrest record, passed out drunk behind the wheel of the car, resisted arrest, assaulted police, stole officer's weapon, attempted to use it against them, shot and killed by police. Jacob Blake, credibly accused rapist and serial abuser, allegedly. Harassing his alleged rape victim, resisted arrest, assaulted police, pulled a knife, reached into a car, shot and injured by police. Deon Kay, known gang member, flashing guns and live streaming it on social media, fled from police, then ran towards them with his gun drawn, shot and killed by police. Daniel Prude, 37 previous arrests, high on PCP, running naked through the street, had spit hood placed on his head because he was spitting at officers after claiming to have had COVID. Died several days later from complications of asphyxia, according to the coroner report. Ricardo Munoz, most recently, previously charged with stabbing 4 people in 2019. He was trying to break into his mother's house, charged at a police officer while wielding a large knife, looked like a butcher's knife, shot and killed by police. Okay. There are a number of obvious commonalities here. Every man on this list was a known or alleged criminal. They were all allegedly in the process of committing a crime. 3 were under the influence of some sort of intoxicant. 3 were in the process of trying to assault or kill police officers. 3 were armed. At least 5 of the 6 were resisting or evading arrest. It's claimed that Prude was not resisting, but he was delirious and spitting. Whether or not that counts as resisting is up for interpretation, I suppose. None of these men were just walking innocently down the street or sitting on a park bench somewhere minding their own business. None can be called law-abiding. In none of these cases is there any apparent or apparent connection to or evidence of racism or racial profiling. In all of these cases, police were called to the scene because of the actions taken by the suspects, which had raised varying degrees of perfectly justified alarm among the public. These cases, far from proving that there is an epidemic of police killing or brutalizing innocent people, actually provide very strong evidence for the opposite conclusion. There is no such epidemic. In fact, it would appear that a person has to make a series of very bad choices in order to run any significant risk of a violent encounter with police. Now, as I've previously demonstrated, a wider view of the issue leads to the same conclusion. Take 2019. Throughout all of 2019, police arrested around 10 million suspects. 70% were white, 30% were black. A total of 14 of the 3 million black people arrested or rather killed during an arrest were unarmed. Only 6 of those cases really count as unarmed when you read the details. Remember, again, this is out of 3 million arrests. Only 1, Tanya Jefferson, was an entirely innocent person minding her own business, gunned down by police randomly while sitting in her house. There's nothing she could have done different, obviously. Fortunately, the police officer has been charged with murder. There was a similar case in 2018 when Botham Jean was killed by an off-duty cop while he was sitting in his own apartment. That officer went to prison. This year there was Breonna Taylor, though in that case she was killed in the crossfire when her boyfriend fired on police during a no-knock raid. It's not exactly the same as the Jefferson and Jean cases, but even if you want to put it in the same category, we're looking at about, what, one instance every year out of millions and millions of police arrests and interactions? In the vast majority of police shootings, they are responding to lethal aggression from the suspect. It would seem that the 6 high-profile cases from this summer are pretty accurate representations of the larger trend, actually. BLM and their allies certainly seem to think so, which is why they're rioting based on those cases. So then what can we learn from them? How might a person who wants to avoid getting shot and or killed by police choose to behave? What could all of these men have done differently? A blueprint emerges. If you want to give yourself like a 99.99999% or even larger probably chance of not dying at the hands of police, all you need to do is 1, avoid committing crimes. 2, if you're going to commit them, avoid doing them while high on lethal doses of narcotics. 3, avoid assaulting police. 4, avoid pulling weapons on police. 5, avoid resisting arrest. Now, it's safe to say that if almost everyone almost everyone in modern American history who has followed these 5 steps has not died at the hands of police. They all have or will die of something else, but police won't be the cause. If you follow these steps, the list of things that is more likely to kill you, regardless of race, is extremely lengthy and includes things like lightning strikes, bear attacks, meteors. This isn't to say that everyone who fails to follow steps 1, 2, and 5 deserves to be killed by cops. I mean, even those who fail to follow 3 and 4, avoid assaulting police, avoid pulling weapons on police, they don't necessarily deserve it, because deserve is not a relevant word here. The police officer who shot Ricardo Munoz wasn't trying to give Munoz what he deserves. He was simply trying to neutralize an imminent threat to his own life. So this isn't about deserve, but it is about consequences. Actions have consequences. A very likely consequence of pulling a weapon on a police officer is that you get shot. Getting shot by a cop is not a statistically likely consequence of committing a crime in the first place. I mean, most people who commit crimes don't get shot, but your chances of that happening are now, as a consequence, higher than they would have been had you committed no crime at all. With each bad choice, the consequences pile up, and the likelihood of a disastrous outcome is heightened. So when you go through steps 1 through 5 there, if you do the opposite, rather than avoiding committing the crime, you commit it. Rather than avoiding, resisting arrest, you resist arrest. As you make each of those mistakes, as you make each of those choices, the likelihood of a disastrous, cataclysmic outcome, a fatal outcome for yourself, is heightened. If you're just adding to the list as you go down. You do none of those things. If you actually follow the steps, you avoid doing all of that, almost certainly, for everyone in America, almost certainly, 99.9999%, if not more, your chances are you'll be fine. You won't be killed by the cops. Now, even if you think that there's an epidemic of racist police out hunting and murdering people, which there isn't, but even if you think that's the case, this should still be your message. This isn't BLM, this isn't their message. They don't want to talk about this. But if you actually value people's lives and you want to save lives, then this should still be your message, where you should still be saying, listen, if you're getting arrested, resisting arrest, fighting the cop, whether or not cops are a bunch of racist murderers, even if they are racist murderers, even more, don't fight them. But one way or another, regardless, nothing good can come of that for you at all. There are 0 good outcomes for you, period. Best case scenario, you survive the encounter, but you just are going to go to jail for longer now because you assaulted a police officer. Worst case scenario, you die. In between scenario, you're Jacob Blake, paralyzed in a hospital, and he's still probably going to go to jail. As well he should if he committed the horrible crimes he's accused of committing. So this should be anyone who really cares about lives, black lives, white lives, any lives, this would be the message. Follow these steps, and no harm will come to you from police. Hope you enjoyed this segment of the Matt Walsh Show, because you should know on September 28th, it will be moving from the Daily Wire channel to be available exclusively on my YouTube channel. You can go there, youtube.com/Matt Walsh, and you can get the link in the description below as well. I'm also making a lot of new content that you can only find on my channel. So subscribe, ring the bell to make sure you never miss a new video.